Commission. Commissioner Swan, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Ambrosiani.
Here.
Charbonneau.
Here.
Commissioner Hatfield is excused. Commissioner Cease is excused. Swan.
Here.
Commissioner Fleming
On her way.
on her way. And Chair Eklund,
Here.
we have a quorum.
Thank you. That takes us to item 4 on the agenda, citizens' comments on any subject except those items scheduled for public hearing. So those who have signed in will be given the first opportunity to speak. Time is limited to 3 minutes per speaker and 36 minutes total time for this agenda item. Do we have anyone signed in?
Yes, Madam Chair. Brenda Ballou. I'm going to get your microphone on too. Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Brenda Ballou. I'm inside the city limits, but I'm actually speaking to you as the city clerk on behalf of City Council. At the January 27th meeting, Council had an item of business related to crosswalks, and they directed you as a commission to work on creating an application process for crosswalks. There has been an awful lot of activity that I've seen through email and on social media that has that indicates that people might believe that you as a body have the option to either pursue this or not pursue this as a project. And the direction is really clear that council has given you. It's not about what design is in a crosswalk. The project is to create a process, an application process. So perhaps not so much for your sake I mention this, but for just the broader message. So a couple of things that the city attorney was really clear about mentioning that night is that the process is content neutral, which takes out any subject matter that might come before the city for the crosswalk, for the design. So it needs to apply to anyone, and you will end up having rules and regulations because there are safety concerns, legal concerns, DOT, but ultimately the process needs to hold up for anyone to apply for within the parameters that you set forth. So I just want to mention, it's really not an issue of you choosing. With all due respect, you can't choose the content, you just create the process. Thank you.
Is there anyone else signed in?
Next signed in is Linda Lasota.
Hi, my name is Linda Lasota. I have been a member of the sewer community for 29 years. 22 of those years was spent inside the city limits, and now I live outside the city limits. I want to thank the City Council for asking you to make the process application for the crosswalks. And if I would have known what Brenda was going to say, I would have just copied her cheat notes. Because I, as a historian member of the previous Seward Historical Preservation Commission, and as a board member of the Historical Society, history was one of the things that was brought up in all the scuttlebutt that I've read in the last few days, which obviously Linda has heard about too. So it's just a great pleasure to ask you that you stick to an application that's clear for everyone, because it'll benefit you, it'll benefit our community, and also all the special interest groups who have fired off on social media. So thank you. Thanks, Brenda.
Thank you. And do we have anyone else signed in?
Next signed in Norma Shellgreen.
Please state your name and inside or outside city limits for the record, Norma.
Hello, I am Norma Shelgren and I live outside the city limits. And my concern is about the crosswalk. And it seemed like, well, there was mentioned about the rainbow, and it seemed like there was a misconception about the rainbow. Not really clear definition of the meaning of the rainbow. And people have said that it was in the Bible, and I was wanting to make it clear what the rainbow in the Bible meant. And it's in Genesis chapter 7. No, I'm sorry, no, Genesis chapter 9. And it has 29 verses, but I'm only going to read from 8 to 17 that explains the rainbow. And God spake unto Noah and to his sons with him, saying, And I behold, and I establish my covenant with you, and with your seed after you, and with every living creature that is with you, of the fowl, of the cattle, of every beast of the earth with you, from all that go out of the ark, to every beast of the earth. And I will establish my covenant with you. Neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of a flood. Neither shall there be any more be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, This is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be a token of a covenant between me and the earth. And it shall come to pass, when I bring a cloud over the earth, that the bow shall be seen in the cloud, and I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and the waters shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh. And the bow shall be in the cloud, and I will look upon it, that I may remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, This is the token of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is upon the earth. So that's what the rainbow in the Bible is about. And somebody else taking it to mean something else is not right. So I oppose the rainbow crosswalk.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else signed in under public hearing?
Yes, next signed in is Margaret Clark.
Hello, my name is Margaret Clark, and I live inside the city limits. And good evening, Planning and Zoning Committee. I oppose the rainbow crosswalk. I know last Monday with the meeting, it was said that the rainbow is in the Bible, but that rainbow for the crosswalk has 6 colors, and the rainbow in the Bible has 7. And also, I question if we open this up to where it was talked about the spaghetti monster church or something. Are we prepared for something like this to have other things in our city? Will this bring peace and harmony to us if we open this up? So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else signed in under this item?
Yes, next signed in is El Zernia.
Hi. My name is Elzernia. I live outside of town, but I own Captain Jack's Seafood Locker, Mermaid Grotto, Proficiency Charters, Cracker Jack Sport Fishing Charters in town, and some of you guys know me from Mermaid Festival. I was directed to come and give a little spiel about some property I just recently purchased, lot 1 and 2 on Lear Road. And I have a challenge because of the way it is zoned right now. I can have many things on this property. I can open a restaurant, I can have a brewery, I can have a shooting range, I can have a golf driving range. But right now, I am not able to move my Mermaid Boutique gift shop to this location due to the zoning. And so I'm looking to have the Planning and Zoning Council direct me, assist me in whatever way to either get a rezoning if necessary, or I know exemption's not the right word, but it's all I can come up with. So yeah, that's what I'm here about. And I've kind of thrown a little bit off over all the recent comments just now. Me as a business owner in Seward, I fully support the crosswalk project. I think it's a great, I just think an all-inclusive mentality for everyone is super important these days. So I can go into more detail if people aren't familiar with exactly where my property is and my zoning issue later on in the evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, there's no one else signed in.
Okay. At this time, is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak on items other than those scheduled for public hearing? Yes, please. Come forward, state your name and inside or outside the city limits for the record.
Linda Paquette, outside the city limits, on PACAB. I think you have a great challenge ahead of you with this crosswalk project. And I'm really curious, there isn't anything in this packet, so I'm hoping maybe in a future meeting there would be some information about how other cities have gone about, not so much that they've done it, but what's the back end? How did they get there? Because I do see I see a real opening. You know, one of the things that people have brought to me was, what if the NRA, they could buy their way and they could, pay for a thing, and so now we're going to have a machine gun crosswalk, and then what about Planned Parenthood, or, it can kind of get crazy. So I don't know what kind of application you would have, and I don't know how that would work. But one thing I wanted to throw out there is maybe if you do run into a block and you can't figure it out, maybe we could look at what would happen if business owners did it to their sidewalk or something. I mean, the town is very inclusive, and we know that. And I think the point is to be able to communicate that to the world. So I think that's the overriding sense that I have of the whole project. So I hope we don't find ourselves bogged down in the minutia of it. I hope we can figure something out. But I also want to acknowledge that it's going to be very challenging. So I appreciate you guys taking it on, even though you didn't have a really choice.
Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak on any item? Yes, please come forward, state your name and inside or outside city limits for the record.
Tony Bachlan, inside city limits. The statements that I am going to make, do not represent the council statements or anybody on the council, or as my statements as the vice president of the Seward Pride Alliance. Recently, there has been a lot of opposition to the agenda statement that was brought forward to council. I just wanted to reiterate some of the concerns, because I feel some people may be confused about certain things that they have been sending letters out and wanting more information or stating information. The first one was addressing the FHWA, the highway rules that have been set forward. I've read it. It's like 600 pages, and I read almost all 600 pages. There's about 150 pages of cities that have been trying to get attention to crosswalks and the ideas and how they have been. They put lights up, they put signs up, they put medians in, raised medians, lights that are in the ground so that they can bring attention to the sidewalks to improve safety. Time and time again, when you look through this, some have helped, some have, and most of the time they've helped, but they have not really caused any major, safety issues on them. So one of them being, if you have the time to read through that, and that keeps getting stated as the information that's given for the Federal Highway Administration. I just recently had a conversation with the DOT traffic engineer for Southeast Alaska. He also states that there's no opposition to decorations in between the white lines. It doesn't say that you can't. It's saying that there should be some guidelines, and I think that's what you will be tasked with, is creating those guidelines. There's information also that's been saying having a link that's apparently linked to the Smithsonian Magazine, but that link is not coming up for any reasons. I got it on my email and from other people. So I think there might be some false information that is being spread, saying that the colorful crosswalks have been challenged and either removed or let fade away. And one of them is Illinois, which also includes Chicago, and there's a mile long of rainbow crosswalks in Boys Town that are maintained by the city. Also safety. Sorry. I'll come back at the end and we finish my comments.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak on items other than those for public hearing? Seeing and hearing no one, I will close the public hearing on all those items and move on to item 5 in the agenda, approval of agenda and consent agenda. Commission?
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda. Second.
Motion by Swan, second by Charbonneau. Any discussion on approval of the agenda or the minutes? Seeing and hearing no discussion or objection. Is there an objection to unanimous consent? Seeing and hearing no objection to unanimous consent, the agenda and consent agenda have been approved. Planner Bacon, what has been approved on the consent agenda?
Approved on tonight's consent agenda is the January 7th, 2020 regular meeting minutes.
Okay, a little housekeeping correction on the agenda. It says 2019, so just take care of that now. That takes us to item 6, special reports and presentations, city administration report, community director Wild, please.
So I just have a couple updates. I believe 2 of the commissioners have a manila envelope or folder in front of them. We are all attending the Planners Conference. So on February 9th, there's commissioner training, and then February 10th and 11th is the Alaska Planning Association Conference. Charbonneau, Swan, and Eklund will be in, as well as Andy and myself. So for future and for the citizens, we will be closed, community development will be closed the 10th and 11th and 12th. And if you need anything, I'm always available by email. I also had 2 laydowns, and I've also supplied extra copies up there. One was being the commissioner's flyer from December of 2019, talking about the census. Seward had the least participation in the last census, and we are working really hard to make that a huge change. I'd like to get over 50%. We were down in the mid 20 percentile. So I'm working with one of the representatives. We're gonna look at doing a town hall get together to help people be able to do the census right there on the spot. There are computers in the library right now if you would like to go in and fill out the application or the census information. But one of the other things that I want everyone to know is that they're still looking for people to do the door-to-door census taking, and you can apply for that online. The hours, vary, but it's $28 an hour, and they have no one signed up in sewer right now, so that is huge. So let's remind everybody census is important and why it's important. It helps us get grant funding. It helps us be able to apply not only for grants but federal funding, multiple things. And then another piece of information that I gave you was conflicts of interest for planning and zoning commissioners. Just a little layout out there. And that's all I have tonight.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Wild from the commission at this time?
Oh, I'm sorry, I have one
Yes.
more thing. I have a card for the commissioners to sign. We lost John French a week or so ago. And, everybody knows that he was on the historic preservation, and we have worked hand in hand with him for many years. So our thoughts and prayers go out to his family.
Okay, thank you. We'll sign that before we leave the room tonight. Under 6B, other reports, announcements, and presentations.
Oh, look at my name's on there. I
Sad
didn't
to
even see it.
say.
I read these so well. Hey,
Do you want to stand up for
look
this?
what I got. I'm really excited.
Okay.
I'm sorry I was late.
To my friend Martha. City of Seward Certificate of Appreciation awarded to Martha Fleming. The Planning and Zoning Commission thanks you for your hard work, dedication, and friendship to the City of Seward. We appreciate your serving on the Seward Planning and Zoning Commission from February 2012 to February 2020. The Seward Planning and Zoning Commission wishes you much luck on your new endeavors. Awarded on February 4th, 2020.
Thank you. Thank you. Say no to everything. Be careful.
I almost teared up there. Okay.
Should I put this on now?
That takes us to item 7, public hearings. And under these public hearings, our comment section time is limited to 5 minutes each, and those who have signed in will be given the first opportunity to speak. Under A, unfinished business that require public hearing, we have one item that has been brought back. Item 1, Resolution 2020-02, recommending City Council approval of the rezoning of Forest Acres Lots 00, PP and XX from single-family residential R1 to multi-family residential R3. And this resolution was brought forward on January 7th, 2020 for a public hearing and was postponed. It is coming back tonight for a second public hearing in order to include a proposed amendment that the commission made that would expand the lots being rezoned to include NN and BJ. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Before you tonight is the recommendation to Council for the Land Use Plan Amendment for Forest Acres, lots 00, PP, NN, BJ, and XX Forest Acres subdivision located between Spruce and Laurel Streets on the east side of the Forest Acres subdivision from single-family residential to multifamily residential. This item is being brought back for public hearing and discussion after the Commission postponed it at their January 7th, 2020 meeting. During the public notice process prior to the January meeting, the property owner of Lot NN contacted city staff stating that they would like to be added to the area to be amended. And while the Community Development Department recommends maintaining our community vision through the implementation of the future land use plan, being that this application meets city code requirements for consideration by the Planning Commission and City Council, the Community Development Department recommends that the 5 parcels bounded by Spruce, Juniper, and Laurel Streets be of the same zoning district. A substitute resolution has been included on page 5 of your meeting packet. That includes the addition of lots NN and BJ to the original resolution heard at the January 7th meeting. Property owners within 300 feet of the subject area were notified of the proposed rezoning, and public notice was posted on site on January 24th, and the hearing was appropriately posted around town in the designated locations, as well as noticed in the Seward Journal. And the public notice included language describing the proposed amendment that would expand the lots being rezoned to include NN and BJ. And I would now like to restate the surrounding land use and zoning description into the record for tonight's meeting. As defined in City Code, the multifamily residential district is intended to provide opportunities for a higher density residential setting with a mix of housing units which are predominantly multifamily units, close to concentrations of public services, employment, and/or recreation. This district may provide a transition between more intensive districts and lower density residential areas if sufficient screening and design features are provided to protect multifamily residences from undesirable effects. The parcels to the west of the area considered for rezoning across Spruce Street are zoned rural residential and include single-family homes. The parcels to the south are zoned single-family residential. I'm sorry, scratch that comment. The parcels to the south of the area to be rezoned include parkland and institutional land that are owned by the city. The parcels to the north and east are zoned resource management and are owned by the city of Seward. And the parcel over there to the east is used for snow storage and utility pole storage. And the city's electric transmission line also runs along the eastern property line of that large lot and along the Juniper Street right-of-way. The city-owned parcel to the north is restricted conservation land, and it was designated as such during the Dick Graff Road levy replat. Further to the east along the Seward Highway are 2 privately owned parcels that are zoned auto commercial. Those are undeveloped. Prior to publication of the packet, planning staff was contacted by the owners of lots NN and BJ within the subject area to confirm their receipt of the public notice, and they stated support and non-objection to the land use amendment. City staff reviewed the application and no objections were received. The Public Works Department and the Electric Department both noted the presence of the electric transmission line running down the undeveloped Juniper Street right-of-way, and the Public Works Department also noted that stormwater floods into the north end of these proposed areas. The majority of the land within this area is located in a FEMA-designated Special Flood Hazard Area, Zone AE, and the base flood elevation for that area is given at 39 feet. And the development of these parcels will be subject to City of Seward floodplain regulations and provisions of Title 16, where utilities need to be present, road improvements made. The staff recommendation is that the Commission make a motion to amend Resolution 2020-02 by adopting the substitute version. And that is all. Thank you.
Okay. At this time, I will open public hearing on this item. Is there anyone signed in?
Yes, the first signed in is Kevin Christian.
My name's Kevin Christian. I'm the owner of Lot NN, live in the city limits, and I'm just here to let you know that I had no opposition to this. Matter of fact, I welcome it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else signed in under public hearing?
Yes, next signed in is Vicky Detert.
Please state your name correctly, and if you live inside or outside the city limits.
I'm Vicki Diedert, and I am in city limits. I am the owner of BJ Lot, and I've been here a whopping 8 months now. I'm currently in an apartment waiting for my house to be built on BJ. I have no objection to the other lots becoming multifamily. I was approached with the idea of also NN and BJ becoming part of that. My personal opinion is I'm fine with whatever people want to build around me, and if there's a reason for me to be included in that rezoning, I won't necessarily object, but I personally don't see any reason for it. I'd rather stay as a single residential. My lot is a small little lot, and I'm assuming that most of the multifamilies would be ending up as condos or duplexes or quadplexes, whatever. And I'm told it will not affect my property tax, but I'm not sure if you rezone it, if that wouldn't affect the price of the land, and therefore my taxes could possibly go up. The other thing is, in the future, when I am finally gone from here, I'm guessing if there's a multifamily unit zoning, someone from the adjoining lands may say, well, let's take her house and tear it down and put up a duplex there or a condo or expand the apartments. I'd rather see it left for a family, a single family person like myself, of one person who needs a starter home, a young couple who needs a starter home. They need housing just as well, and the apartment prices around here are way too high for a single person or a young couple. So I would rather see my lot remain single use if possible, but again, like I said, I would have no objection to the other. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do you have anyone else signed in under this item?
Yes, Carol Griswold.
Carol Griswold, City Limits. The Planning and Zoning Commission must provide rational and non-arbitrary reasons in support of its decision in accordance with the 1996 Alaska Supreme Court ruling on spot zoning. To determine whether Resolution 2020-02 constitutes illegal spot zoning, consider 1, the consistency of the amendment with the comprehensive plan, 2, the benefits and detriments of the amendment to the owners, adjacent landowners, and community, 3, the size of the area to be rezoned, and 4, compliance with the Seward Code. 1, the consistency of the amendment with the 2030 comprehensive plan. This proposed rezone is not contiguous with any other R3 zone, nor does the rezone bring it into compliance with the land use map. It is not consistent with the plan. 2, the benefits and detriments of the amendment to the owners, adjacent landowners, and community. The landowners have not presented any plans for multifamily housing, leading one to wonder if this is a speculative rezone to make it more valuable for resale as a commercial property. This is a benefit to the owners, not a benefit to the adjacent landowners or the community. The preservation of neighborhood character, traffic safety, and aesthetics are legitimate concerns. The government's interest in aesthetics is substantial and should be accorded respect. Increased traffic is a valid reason to deny application for rezone. These are tangible harms. 3, the size of the parcel is 4.91 acres, still a relatively small area that may also be considered spot zoning. 4, compliance with City Code 1510-115 purpose. Protect the public health, safety, and general welfare of the community's residents. 4, provide safe aesthetic surroundings and living conditions. What is the risk of flooding and the flood zone rating? What is the risk of liquefaction on this silty substrate during an earthquake? And 10, determine the most appropriate use of land in accordance with the comprehensive plan, which is low-density R1. I find that this proposed rezone is an illegal spot zone. It is not in compliance with the comp plan. The rezone seems to benefit the owners for resale purposes, and no mitigation of negative impacts have been expressed. Approval of this rezone is arbitrary. The amendment does not bring the parcel into compliance or allow an existing zone to be expanded. Increasing housing density in a potential flood zone on unstable silt is not safe. Allowing property owners the flexibility to do what they want with their property when not in compliance with the comp plan and future land use map negates the need for planned zoning altogether. I appreciate your consideration of these points. Thank you.
Is there anyone else signed in to speak at this time?
There is no one else signed in.
Is there anyone in the audience? Please come forward to the podium, state your name and inside or outside limits, city limits for the record.
Good evening, I'm Jim McCracken, I do live out of town. We spoke about this at the January 7th public hearing. I think we covered the ground there pretty well. This 6-acre piece meets or exceeds the city code for rezoning. If there is any flood issues, the flood development plan will address them. Engineers will have to address that. 39 foot is the BFE, and there's a portion of the back of XX that is at 1 foot, needs 1 foot of fill. That's engineers and building department certainly take care of that very closely. I happened to be on that piece of land or adjacent piece during the earthquake back in the good old days, and the substrate that Carol spoke to, I have no recall of that. I was standing there. I was 15 years old. Thank you. If I have any questions, I can certainly answer them.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak on this item? We typically allow one time to speak, but you did not use your full 3 minutes, so I guess we could, your 5 minutes, I guess we could suspend the rules and allow Mr. Christian to speak again, if you wish.
Well, I guess I'm
Please,
misunderstanding.
so that you're recorded, that'd be great, thank you.
Kevin Christian, Inside the City. I guess I'm misunderstanding because she's saying that there's no other multifamily in that area, but right across the street and down the way, they're building multiple family apartments across from the military camp. So there is that zoning in that area. It's being utilized. It's on the same level, so I just want to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol, how many minutes did Carol have left?
One minute.
One.
1:29, but.
I think it was 1.49.
I just said that, 1.49.
Thank you. Carol Griswold, City Limits. Our code requires contiguous, and someone building multifamily somewhere else nearby, not adjacent, not contiguous, does not count. That strip of green, the property, the long-term care facility was going to be put there when they did their geotechnical analysis. They said there's too much silt here. It would be extraordinarily expensive to provide the level of safety required for our seniors. And so they said we can't afford to do it here, it's not safe. So I'm using that 1,000 feet of silt according to Dwayne Levan, and you don't want to put a lot of people in harm's way. Thank you. Also, if I have 18 seconds, our code is very out of date, as I pointed out numerous times. I did have considerable comments for the previous planning and zoning packet that are not in this packet. And we really need to follow the rule of the land, which is its Supreme Court. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I'll offer one more option for a public hearing on this item. Seeing and hearing no one, I will close this public hearing and bring it back to the commission for a motion.
Move that we adopt Planning and Zoning Resolution 2020-02.
I'll second that.
The substitute.
Substitute.
On page
5.
5.
I thought we had made them.
Do we have an agreement by the second
Yes.
to the motion? Okay.
Sorry.
So the motion is that Resolution 2020-02 recommending city council approval of the rezoning of the lots OOPP, NN, BJ, and XX, just to be clear on that. And I will call on the maker of the motion for first comments if she
I
so
think,
wishes.
well, I think we discussed it more the last meeting, and I don't really know if I could recall all the things we said. But I just think I think getting the other people that were part of it to do the whole block makes the best sense, and I don't feel that this is arbitrary or spot zoning. I think if we left the BJ1 different, would probably more of a spot zoning issue rather than doing the whole block. So therefore, I would like it to go forward.
Commissioner Swan, comments?
My comment is very similar. We discussed this, and it was our wish to make these adjustments, so and it has been done. So I'm fine with moving forward with it as it's done.
Commissioner Charbonneau or Ambrosiani, any discussion?
Mine were the same. So.
Same?
Mine are pretty much the same too. We thought this was a good location for our town to have R3 and possibly have more high density housing. Also, I don't think it's within our purview of determining whether the ground is stable enough and whether or not it's legally appropriate. I think doesn't that come in under the city councils and it should not be affecting our decision.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm also in support of it based on the staff report. It is following city code as it is, and it is not too small to rezone. I feel very comfortable after Mr. McCracken spoke and said that there is going to be an engineer study of the property prior to building anything. I want to state that every one of these lots, even if it is R3, every one of them could have a single family house on it. Just because it's zoned R3 doesn't require you to build R3 or a multifamily. I guess they're already thinking about the fill that they're going to have to bring in. I have been on this commission for quite some time, and it's a constant comment that we need more housing in this town. So I feel that this is a way to meet that need. And I will ask if there's any further discussion on this.
I had one more
yes.
point that was brought up about traffic, but I don't see where there was that location, I don't see traffic through neighborhoods as being an issue because it's really on the east end of all the neighborhoods over that way. So there's really easy access to the highway.
Okay. Well, it hasn't been typical for the commission to state findings, but I would include what Mr. Commissioner Ambrosiani just said about access to this multifamily property, the fact that it is large enough to be rezoned, that it meets the code, and we can list all of the sections of the code that it meets as findings for support of this. Is there any other specific comment that we could add to our discussion to state findings as to why this is not just because somebody wants to rezone? Any other items we can remember? I could add it meets the high need for residential housing in the city. Okay, let's have a roll call vote on this, please.
Roll call vote to adopt substitute resolution 2020-02. Commissioner Swan.
Yes.
Commissioner Charbonneau.
Yes.
Commissioner Ambrosiani.
Yes.
Commissioner Fleming.
Yes.
And Chair Eklund.
Yes.
Substitute resolution 2020-02 is passed and approved.
It takes us to item 7B, new business items requiring public hearing. There are none listed on our agenda. 8 is unfinished business that didn't require public hearing, and we don't have any of that. So it takes us to 9, new business, discuss the 2030 comprehensive plan. And we had a work session on that, so could you give us an update, please?
Madam Chair, we put this as a discussion item tonight. At our work session, we did discuss the fact that we didn't have a lot of participation for the review start. And also, administration would like direction from the council, or from the commission, to tell us what direction they would like us to take this review of the comprehensive plan. Do you want us, we spoke about trying to take sections of the town and implementing portions of the comprehensive plan, making every block be aware of what was going on in the comprehensive plan and future land use plans. You also I also suggested that I bring forward numbers showing you businesses that are located, doing a data survey. So we're just, we're at your beck and call. We just need to know the direction you would like us to take the review.
Commissioner Fleming.
So I think at the discussion, and I think it's important that we got the information. So each, I think the idea of having a smaller groups invited will be what will be successful, because that's the way this town works the best. So if we say we're just doing the historical section, we would want, before we had that meeting, the list of how many bed and breakfasts and how many businesses and how many single-family homes and how many duplexes in that area, so that when people come to that meeting, they will already have some information. Because I think it's too much. We'd end up having so many meetings we wouldn't be able to do it. And I say we very loosely. But I'll help with this part, because I think that's part of it, is getting the people that are interested in the comprehensive plan to help, rather than just have you two do it and the commissioners. Because we all live in different spots and we could help with each spot. But we definitely need some information to start. So I really think getting that information to us, to these guys quickly, and then decide which area is the best place to start. And then really just like right at the end of the summer when there's still people here, try to get at least a few of them in. I know when my area, which is Clearview, had a meeting because we were talking about going R1. It was really important that everyone came, and so I went to every door. Come on, see, because we wanted to keep it R2, and part of it was just getting someone to walk around and knock. So I think it's a good way to go, and I think it's just unfortunately more work for you guys to start.
I just want to make it clear to everyone that this is the 2030 comp plan that we're talking about. Right now, we are under the 2020 comp plan, and it is 2020. This is a requirement of the Planning Commission to do an annual review. So we're just reviewing the plan, taking notes, and then keeping those notes in preparation for when we do an update and start work on the 2030, which will be within the 10 years so that we have it adopted by 2030. But this is just our annual review. And the ground truthing of what's on the property, I think, is important. I did just do the federal edition, and with pretty colored markers, and put what was on each piece of property. And it's interesting to see how many different kinds of uses are in these different zones. Just because it's named one zone, it's not like that's the only thing you can have there. So, and the rest of the commission, any other comments regarding the work session or direction to? Yes.
How many small groups are you thinking? Because are we going to have like 5? Are we going to have 20? Or are we going to have?
Over the next 10 years?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Is how
I'm not
detailed
giving
do we
a
want to
timeline or
break up
anything.
things? Do we want to? How minuscule do we want to get? Do we want to get into blocks or groups, or how do we want to do that?
as I did the federal edition, we have different plats of the city, and most of them are quite a large area. There might be some replats, like when people join properties and they did a replat, but typically you can take like Old Town Seward, Federal Edition, Lobner Edition, Clearview Edition, Forest Acres. And so if we go over the next 10 years and break it down like that and have each of those ground truth, that splits the work up over the years for the department and for our work sessions. And then we can try to get as many people from those areas to come to the meetings. Yes, Planner Bacon.
Can I offer a suggestion based on that thought would be that maybe the commission in a work session type setting with the public, draws some lines and defines those areas. Then we've got our areas that we work with, and then city staff can, we'll put them in order of what we want to review, and then city staff can look at those areas in that order in subsequent work sessions.
So that is similar to what my thoughts were.
Yeah.
The main thing, though, is the ground truthing. So if we have to have the division of properties before you start the ground truthing, then that should be maybe our one of our next work sessions.
Yep.
To draw those boundaries.
Okay.
Okay? And we'd love you all there. All right, that takes us, unless there's more comments on the comp plan, to item 9B, discuss the permitting process and procedures for crosswalks per council direction. And I just want to note that we're tasked with coming up with the process. The council will have final approval of whatever we come up with. It will become an ordinance and it would go into the city code. We're just doing the background work and prepping the ordinance, and it'd come to the council after we recommend it, and then the council can amend, pass, or deny. So could we have a report on this?
Madam Chair, as our clerk had stated earlier, we were tasked with coming up with a application and a process for crosswalks. I just want to clarify that we, again, listened to the meeting, made sure that we have this down verbatim. So our attorney suggested that it would be better if it came to council as rather than an organization as a public forum, and that's why it's been moved to planning and zoning. She suggested that we identify areas that could have these crosswalks, figure out maybe stilling the same process that we used for mobile vendors, incorporate a renewal process and how that process would work. I did speak to the chair earlier, and I just want to put out there that I would like to see us schedule a work session to discuss the options of mural walkways, crosswalks, walkable murals, those type of intersections, how the code is stated by the Alaska Transportation Manual, and how we can incorporate different crosswalks. It's not if we decide, it's the process that we decide. And there's a lot of information out there. I just want to really suggest to the commission that we take it on as we have every portion of the code that has been tasked with us, from sign code to mobile vendors to parking, and we look at the facts.
Thank you. Commissioner Fleming.
So I guess it's more up to your department to tell us when you'd be able to get some other towns and cities or states codes and information before we even got it to a work session.
Commissioner Fleming, I've already started some of that. Citizen Paquette had stated, the process. That process is a long process, which we all know, the review. But I have found some really interesting policies and processes that have been introduced into communities. on how you look at the crosswalk, not just, like I said, a walking mural. I would like to look at it that direction instead of the other directions everybody's trying to go. Make sure, I brought it up the other day that, we have for years had Port Avenue, Harbor, and downtown. How do we get people from point A to point B? Maybe this is the way, but we do have policies, we do have procedures that have already been enacted throughout the country.
Commissioner Swan?
I guess I'd like to hear a little bit of the history background why this is coming up, because this is fairly new to me and you're talking about a whole bunch of stuff that we're like, okay, where's all this coming from? Could you fill me in?
So at the last council meeting, there was an agenda statement that was introduced by Councilmember Blakline, sorry. And it was a recommendation to adopt the ability to put a rainbow crosswalk in an area downtown. And they discussed it at lengths, and then the council made a recommendation and voted to ask planning and zoning to review the process.
Commissioner Ambrosian?
Sure. Do you, or can you give us a list or share with us a list of cities that you would be looking at? Because a few of us have Googled, some other cities and looked at their processes and things. And, should we be trying to stick with just Alaska towns or Northwest? Or?
I think that it's like the cities that I've looked at. I've looked at Chicago, I've looked at San Diego, San Francisco, Seattle, Juneau, and I think that the biggest thing is incorporating the Alaska traffic manual. As long as we follow those guidelines, then as a commission, you need to decide, how that application looks, how that policy and procedure looks. Do we, we follow the guidelines right now as they state, they must have white lines. And, at stop signs, they're a solid white line. And then when there's not stop signs, there's the longitude lines. And so, in many of the instances that I've looked at, they've stayed within those parameters. And I think that those are the parameters, if we're going to stick with Alaska state statute and the Alaska manual, which is adopted by the city of Seward, then those are the policies and procedures that we need to look at. If we're incorporating it into code, it must be this and this, and not include lettering. There's been quite a few that cities that specifically stated no lettering. It can be colored. There were incidences where they showed like the 3D imagery, which throws you off a little bit when you're driving, but I think that it's doable. It's definitely a procedure that we can fix, and maybe you start out with saying we're only going to do 4 of them, because I think it was 4 spaces for mobile vending, 4.
3 or 4, yeah.
And, that policy and procedure, we've added spaces, and that's built and grown, and I think that it's doable. I can definitely send you a list, but I'm asking that we schedule a work session so I can supply you guys with a really comprehensive packet that gives you an outline and how different cities have incorporated decorative or creative crosswalks.
Commissioner Charbonneau, anything to add or
I'm just
questions?
looking forward to seeing all the other cities, how they deal with it.
In our discussion earlier today, Ms. Wild and I think Seattle approved 8 and then increased it to 10.
To 10.
So if we're looking at size and our size, I think 3s and 4s are a better number. The other thing that I want to make sure we do is include the Historic Preservation Commission in our work sessions, and I don't know at what point that would be, if it's at the first one when we get the first look, or maybe the second one when we're closer to, you know, parameters. We have to discuss a work session next on the agenda, so if there's not anything else, I do want to make sure that the application process will remain content neutral. The application process is not to say no or yes to any specific group, person, organization. It is just the process that will go to council for council's approval. Okay, any other discussion on item 9B?
Madam Chair, I'd just like to point out that we have another work session coming up in the near future with Historic Preservation to discuss their addition to the historic plan, and I figured that we might be able to lead that into the same, you know, we do our first work session and then incorporate it with them too.
Do we have that one scheduled? Okay.
No, I have a meeting with the chair from HP in a week.
Okay. All right.
One more.
Yes,
Just
Commissioner Ambrose.
something I want considered would be if a mural is in front of somebody's business, I think there has to be some way for that person to either, to definitely support it. And if they don't, there should be some way to resolve that. Because the last thing I'd want to see happen is something go in and for some reason, you know, the people that own the businesses right there would say, we're leaving. We're not going to have that. So there'd have to be some kind of opportunity for the people in that area to say they're supportive of whatever it comes out. So I would think in the process has to be some community feedback close to that location.
Okay, I'm not sure we had plenty of public hearings on the mobile vendor and meetings, work sessions, and I'm not sure it doesn't come to us when someone applies for that. It's an administrative process after the fact. But during all those meetings, there was plenty of opportunity for public input. But I hear your point, and it's something I think we should consider during the work sessions. Okay, now we can move on to 9C? Okay, that's to discuss cancellation or rescheduling of the February 18th, 2020 work session. And I'll call on commissioners to give their input before I give mine. Anybody have input?
I'll be here and don't see why we should cancel it unless it's.
I think one reason was that they were going to be at the conference the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th.
We're talking about rescheduling it.
Reschedule.
Yeah, so I
reschedule.
agree rescheduling. And if there is a calendar for February, and the second to the last page, and I don't see a problem with Thursdays, or even the February 25th, the next Tuesday instead of the 18th.
I'm just gonna wear this.
But you're gonna be
And so
here
I'm
in
not gonna be
February.
I've gotten my citation, I don't think
Your
I need to be here anymore.
appointment doesn't end till the end of February. Yeah, so.
Thursdays
I might be a
work
skipper.
better for me
Thursdays,
because my Tuesdays, February are messed up the rest of the month.
the rest of the month? How about Thursdays for, well, let's make sure they're available
The
on Thursdays.
27th or the 20th?
Which, the 20th would give you a week after you get back.
I'm not available.
You're not available on the 20th? Are you on the 27th?
To be honest, I prefer the 27th because then we can give you the packet possibly like on the 20th. So
Okay.
you could 20th or 24th.
Yeah, especially if there's a long packet, a lot of reading.
27th works for me, great.
27th,
Yeah, I'll be
27th,
fine.
You can invite me.
27th.
We'll pick you up.
And the commission hopefully will be appointing, the council hopefully will be appointing another commissioner on the 24th.
Well, there you go.
hopefully, so then we could.
What was your name again?
I don't know.
But they wouldn't start until March because you're still on
You
at
can have my new
27th,
thing.
so, okay. All right, so, I'm
You want a motion?
pretty sure. Yeah, go ahead and make a motion and that clears it up for them.
Can I make a motion to move our
February 18th.
February 18th work session to February 27th?
Second.
Can we put a topic?
And the topic, Commissioner Ambrosiani?
Sidewalks.
Crosswalks.
Crosswalks, I said that same thing.
Crosswalk.
Walkable murals.
Crosswalks?
Walkable murals. Okay, or
And so
whatever
if
we
we're
adopt
having-
is the, that we're gonna call it, but for
Well, the
now,
other
it's
thing-
called crosswalks.
Do we want to jumpstart? Because I don't know, dividing up our sections of town, I don't think would take that much.
Oh, no, I don't think so.
Could we include that also, just to jumpstart that process?
Yes.
Ground truthing, or just,
Well, no, just dividing it up
okay.
so that we can get input from the community on
And land use.
theirs.
And land use.
Just land use, the
In
crosswalks and land use.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, I can amend my
Land use.
motion meeting to be for crosswalks and land use.
Does
I
the
can
second agree?
second that.
Perfect. Was there any objection to the motion? Any further discussion, any objection? Seeing and hearing no objection, the work session for February has been rescheduled to Thursday, February 27th. And that takes us to informational items and reports. Is there any additional comments you want to make on any of those items?
Madam Chair, all I would like to point out is on page 29, we have included a short version of Robert's Rules, just a quick motions cheat sheet.
5 pages, no, 4 pages. of
There's a
that.
cheat sheet if
Okay,
just one.
5 pages, okay. Any commissioner comments on those items, informational items and reports? Okay, that takes us to commission comments. Commissioner Charbonneau, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I would like to thank the public for coming out and coming to our meeting, and also Jackie and Andy for putting stuff together.
Commissioner Swan?
Yeah, absolutely.
Commissioner Ambrosiani?
Thank you, but also, is this a time where we could follow up on a comment from earlier?
Well, they're gonna come up and talk after this, and then we'll have another opportunity to respond to their comments. And we can suspend the rules while they're up there if you have questions. Or now, if there's someone specific you wanted to ask questions of, maybe you could state it, and then they'll prepare themselves for their comments.
I wanted to hear more from Elle Zernia and what barrier she was up against and what she's trying to propose.
Okay. Commissioner Fleming?
Thank you for all the good meetings, period. And have fun on Tuesdays.
And you're also working.
You're gonna miss us.
I'll miss you.
Yeah, I'm just gonna miss Martha Fleming tremendously. I've already missing her at the schools, now I'm gonna miss her at these meetings, so she can come back anytime she wants, and I can always use her. Yeah, I can use her as a sounding board, yeah. And thank you, Jackie and Andy, for your preps for tonight, and thank you, public, for coming. At this time, it takes us to citizens' comments, and you get 5 minutes per individual this time. Each individual has 1 opportunity to speak. Is there anyone wishing to speak at this time? Ms. Lasota. She had her hand up.
I want to thank the commission, especially the chair, for remembering to invite and work with the Seward Historic Preservation Commission. They are a real active commission, more active, I think, than I've seen in a while, maybe even more active in the 20 million years I've spent on the commission. But what is really important is they're working on the historical district, which you also oversee, and including them, as you have spoken tonight, is just a great asset for the community. And thank you for your professionalism as you approach the job of making an application for crosswalks. I think you're looking at it in a positive and professional way, and I'm excited to see what you come up with. And I'll be listening in. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak at this time? Ms. Zernia. Please state your name for the record.
El Zernia, outside of city limits. Sorry, I was so nervous before. For anyone who's not familiar with the property I'm referring to, it's the property that is
Yes, could you
directly
point it out?
adjacent to the passenger train depot, formerly the business of Seward Heavy Industrial Power occupied.
The triangle?
It's the big carrot, yeah.
The triangle, oh, that
The
was
carrot.
a popular item for many years, yes.
So it's the property, I do better when I can talk with my hands. Directly beside where the train passenger depot is. It's 4 buildings, 3 metal buildings, and then the 4th building being a multi-unit storage unit type thing. I am looking to hopefully move my Mermaid Grotto gift boutique that's currently at 303 South Harbor in the Subway Mall over to this new property, which I own. And also opening a small plate cafe where train passengers can go to wait for the train, because I've spoken with this is a little segmented, but I've spoken with the Vice President of Real Estate for the Alaska Railroad, Jim Kubitz, and he was super excited about my ideas for changing the property, the face of the property. They indicated that they had been unhappy for a long time with the visual
That's enough.
unsightliness of a boat repair facility directly next to the passenger train, and I had indicated that I wanted to beautify the situation. As many people know, I've kind of been on my mermaid mission these last 4 years, and I'm gonna bring that energy into that space and have some picnic tables out so people can have some place to sit. If you go down by the train, 2 hours, 3 hours before the train is getting ready to leave, people are literally sitting like on curbs waiting. And so for them to have a place where they could go and maybe have something to drink, something small to eat, charge their devices, check their email, they indicated they would be really happy with something that would fit that criteria. And I just am looking to make it a much prettier space. I see that as the kind of the gateway for the railroad to be introduced to Seward, people traveling on the train. And right now they kind of get off the train and are wondering where they can go that is gonna kind of give them what they're looking for as visitors to our town. And so I'm hoping that we can renovate the current location to be more visually appealing so that they will be excited and be like, oh, yeah, Seward, what a cute little town, let's go. And so forth.
Commissioner Ambrosiani, did you have questions for Ms. Zernia? While you're thinking, I have
Thank you.
one. Currently, it's zoned industrial, I
Industrial,
believe.
yes.
And across the street is Harbor Commercial.
Harbor
Is that
Commercial is where
correct?
the train wreck is, yeah, where the, like
Yes.
the Seward
And across
smoke shack
the,
and
across the highway is Auto Commercial.
auto
So,
commercial,
yeah.
and then I believe just on the other side of the train depot, I'm not sure where, like, the space that Sailing Inc. occupies,
Auto
I'm not
commercial.
sure. Auto commercial.
Yeah, okay.
And I am, with the current code, I am completely within the code to have an eating establishment. I would just also like to be able to bring my retail business over there. I see other locations near that do the same thing. You have Ace Hardware that is a retail store that's just down the street from there. And so I look forward, I guess, to just trying to figure out how to get, I realized and remembered the word I was thinking of, a variance, or if it would be better to have a rezoning. I'm asking you guys, I guess.
I think there's several options that could be looked at. Did you think of your question?
My question was really going to be for administration.
Okay. Administration, if you could stay there in case we have another question, that'd be great.
And are there some possible options?
We had, she just mentioned Ace Hardware. That is based under Marine Supply, and that's why they are allowed to do the retail that they do. You know, I've talked to Ms. Zernia in lengths, and the code and the land use as it stands right now, retail that she's discussing is not allowed in the land use. So it is a zoning change, it is a code change. And I was the one who suggested that she bring it to the commission tonight just to put it out there. So, you know, this is the process, this is how it works. We can, you know, look at it and look at what that process looks like, adding that to the land use.
Okay.
I like the idea, and I really like the idea of, I mean, we've talked about improving corridors into our community. I mean, this is another corridor. You know, when you're coming in on the train, you get off the train, and that's what you're looking at. So I think it fits in with some of the things we've already discussed in our comprehensive plan.
And I definitely have like a vision of it being more like, you know, almost kind of like in front of the harbor, where it's like a courtyard type of scenario, like a plaza with, you know, food and shops and murals. And I would be honored and thrilled to have one of the crosswalks in front of my business. But that's just me. So yeah, I'm just trying to figure out the process on how to do this.
Commissioner Swan.
Can I think this would be an appropriate time to have a specific work session. And that's the direction I would recommend is having the same topic as a work session. And go through the different options, and then between the public and property owner and ourselves, determining which is the best way to move forward. You know, either changing the code or changing the zoning type of thing, and having a good idea, but make sure that we have public.
Right. So if you could
interest
put
there
that
also.
on our list for possible March work session, that'd be great. It's usually our second meeting in the month, Tuesdays. Okay, unless we reschedule. Any other members of the public wishing to speak at this time? Yes, Councilmember Baclon, you were going to, I say resident Baclon was going to finish his. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a great idea that Ms. Zernia has, because that when you get off that train, that's all you see are those really not good-looking buildings, and that would be a really cool thing to see across the street when you get off the train. And you do see people sitting on the road there. I see them all the time, or sitting on their luggage. I feel bad for them. There's really nowhere to sit there, and they're all waiting for the train. I think I want to use my time and just talk about visibility in the LGBTQ plus community. In one way, this sidewalk can save lives because that speed limit on that street that we're talking about, even if we talk about a new street or somewhere else, is 25 miles an hour. If you hit somebody, most likely speeding, because you're not paying attention or whatever, you know, for whatever reason. The other way that it can save lives is just by visibility. If you talk to people in this town who are in the community of the LGBTQ plus community, the rate of suicide, attempted suicide, the challenges that people face as children and LGBT youth, trans women of color are the highest. People always think of Native women as the highest against sexual assault. Trans women of color are number one. The discrimination that they face, all of those things. Just one little support, one show of support from this community could possibly save a life from suicide, from somebody who thinks that they're not worth being loved because that's what their family tells them, that you're no good, that their family kicks them out. We've seen this in this town. We've seen this with the children. We know that this is happening, and we're turning our faces and our eyes to this. And all we're trying to do is show people that they are loved. And that's all. People may think what they want about me, but I'm a Christian. I've been a Christian my whole life. I loved going to church. But my relationship with God is intimate and it's personal, and that's how I keep it. But this can save lives in more ways than one. And it can show so many people that come here, that live here, that love is love is love is love. And that's all we want to show people. The rainbow, you can take however you want to take it. 6 colors, 7 colors, 5 colors. However you want to show it. And that was a promise from God. That was a promise from God that He would never again destroy the earth with water or flood. And what we want to promise to our future and to history, to make history, to say that we are going to show the world, at Seward, the children, the people here, that we love you. We care about you. And if you want to take that rainbow in 50 different ways, it could go any other way. But it could also save some lives. And that's just one thing to think about when really, when people talk about advertisements or where could it go from this or that, it's veiled and it's a disguise, and you know it. Because what's behind the issue is not safety, is not different things that people want to say. It's something else. We know. And that's what we live with. That's what those children live with every day when their parents tell them they're not worth it, that they don't take care of them, that they're left to go to other people's homes and other people take care of them. We know this. We've seen it. And if you don't see it, I'm sorry, but it's hard. It's really hard to know that there's children that are not cared for by their parents. But this can really make a big difference and a big impact. And it's just about love. Simple as that. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Sheldon.
Yes, I'm Norma Shelgren, outside of city limits, and the LGBT, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, I think that's a personal choice. And that's an intimate matter. And I think it should stay that way. I don't know why you'd want to broadcast that. And I don't think it should be the first thing seen from tourists coming off of the trains, seeing that emblem. I'd want it to represent Seward. We are Seward, Alaska, and I don't think we need to copy big cities and the problems that they have. by bringing the attention to that one area. And yes, we should beautify the city of Seward, and yes, the city of Seward should be loving to everybody, and we, the people, need to express acceptance and welcome to all kinds of people. But why do we need to target this intimate subject out in public? I think we need to consider that.
Is anyone else in the audience wishing to speak? Yes, Ms. Griswold?
Carol Griswold, City Limits. So, just a few questions here. I wonder about recording the P&Z meetings. I see our screen is blank, and it's a valuable service that Linda provides, and I really appreciate her volunteering for all these meetings. I don't see it. When we're at council meetings, I guess I see it. So it's being recorded so people can, very good. Thank you. Because I think your meetings are very valuable, and the public can't all come and sit here. So I would like to suggest that P&Z needs work sessions on revising Title 15, especially to bring the rezone amendments in alignment with the Alaska Supreme Court rulings, to revise and update the land uses allowed table, and to revise and update the short-term rentals definitions and regulations. We are fighting some really ancient code, and we're trying to move ahead. So it's really difficult to, I'm thinking about every issue. When you have an outdated code, when you have outdated uses in these land use zones, and you have terms that are not even in, for example, the short-term rental application, we don't even have terms like that in our code. So it just seems you're really pushing a lot of sludge if you don't have a updated code. It's really hard. And it seems that if you focus, I know other things pop up and you have to make time for that, but if you took some time, set it aside on a regular basis to tackle, we had a good head of steam there on nightly lodgings for a while, and then it just kind of faded away. But if you really focused on these particular issues, I think that it would make things a lot easier as you address zoning codes and short-term lodging and seasonal housing and all these things that come up. It would be a lot easier if our code was updated and revised to reflect now and the future, not as it does now. We didn't even know what a B&B was when our code was made. So I hope you'll take time to update the code. Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak at this time? Okay, under Commission and Administration response to citizens' comments, I just want to make sure that everyone knows that we are live on YouTube, and you can also find it at a later time on YouTube. And Linda, you're on Seward Civic Engagement, and you can find that at a later time as well. So there's two options to now. This is new to planning and zoning. We weren't on TV before, but we are now. And so I wanted to make mention of those two items. And then on the other item on the work sessions regarding our short-term rentals, B&Bs and all that, we did work on that quite a bit, and then we are waiting for the analysis to be completed and the ground truthing to be done to then move forward and look at how we can make changes to Title 15 land use allowed tables and to the definitions. There are issues, I think we can all agree that there are issues in there that need to be looked at. But rather than just do one at a time, if we can, again, sections. So any other comments from the commission? And Commissioner Swan?
Yeah, I'd like to add one other thing. Just to clarify something, I mean, we got into the bed and breakfast stuff, and that whole process started because this commission wanted to look at land use. And we said we can't really make good decisions with land use unless we know what the land is being used for. At that point in time, we asked planning department, the city, to ask for funds so we could get information. That process brought out this whole fact that there's so many more bed and breakfast and lodging places that weren't getting business license, that it took its own speed. But that's not our place. Tax collection and stuff is not a P&Z thing. We just happen to be an entity for public hearings. And so that kind of came into our area for public hearings. We're working with land use, and that information is being compiled for exactly what Ms. Griswold was talking about, because we know we have some issues out there that we would like to work with, but we needed the information to make good judgments. And that information is still being collected, and it's just doesn't happen overnight. I just want to make sure that's clear to people.
Thank you. Commission, any other comments?
Madam Chair, can I make one
Yes,
comment?
please.
I just want to clarify and give you guys a little bit of what we're doing. You will, in your next packet, see a new layout that will show when our meetings are and then a possible topic for work sessions. I introduced this a couple years ago with PACAB because we based our work sessions off of our priorities. And in my years as planner and now director, I just noticed that we need to get back on that track where we're really working off of what our priorities are. And so you will see sort of that same type of layout that they have in PACAB for when our meetings are and then what a topic could be. And I will incorporate what our planning and zoning priorities are in that.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, unless there's any other comments by the commission, I'll accept a motion for adjournment.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
We're adjourned.